Hello and welcome to my Woolly PhD. My name is Liz Scarf and this is a weekly vlog about what I've been learning and making this week in my anthropology PhD all about wool. You can find a brief sort of description of the project in the introductory video, so I won't go all through that every time. But this week, I think we're at week 10, that's very exciting. I've been reading about the difference between making and growing. And as with many good anthropology discussions, people tend not to say this is what making is and this is what growing is. They say, what happens when we put these two ideas next to each other and try to use them to understand nature of reality or how life happens or what people are doing, what people and things are doing together. So I'm also not going to say this is what making is and this is what growing is. But suffice to say, the kinds of discussions that people have about it in anthropological literature just makes it sort of just really challenges the idea that they're really clearly distinct processes. And yeah, so I'm not going to go into definitions either, but I was going to share a few of the things that I really sort of stood out for me in the reading, and then how does that apply to making things with wool, and the life of wool and fibres too, right? So the book in particular I've been reading and enjoying is by Tim Ingold and Elizabeth Hallam. It's called Making and Growing: Anthropological Studies of Organisms and Artifacts. So organisms, well, we tend to think of them now as kind of what is living and growing, and artifacts are made and are sort of inert. This doesn't totally add up though, right? Like crystals grow. They're kind of an inert, well, they're not really, anyway. So this is where it gets really complicated. So I'm going to just stay with knitting and growing, knitting and wool. So maybe one place to start is that they think about making as a process of continually bringing something into being. And this is a really interesting conversation that happens in anthropology about processes of being and becoming, and that the world is constantly, and everything in it, in processes of being and becoming. The way in which we kind of, just for a human, right, we change, our identity changes over time, where we're becoming something. Mind just went off in all these different directions of when aren't we becoming something? Like, is it when we're dead? Anyway, that's another tangent. So in this reading, they also described or highlighted how making is also composed of the same three stages as a rite of passage, right? And so the first stage is separation, where the material is removed from its former life. Then there is the transition stage, so when it's time sort of in the workshop. And then finally is the reincorporation stage, but into a new context, a new career in a sense. And so I was thinking about this for fibre and knitwear, right? So shearing is the separation stage, and then the transition stage, like in the workshop, right, is the scouring, the spinning, the knitting. This is all the kind of preparation, but knitting also is scouring, and spinning is kind of preparation, kind of making. Knitting feels more like making, but a sweater grows. So, we get into this territory of what's growing, what's making. It starts to get blurry. But then when the sweater is made, it has a new career, and then that's the third sort of phase, the reincorporation into a new context, new career, new usage. I just thought that was really interesting. And this idea that making is a form of initiation or rites of passage. Like when we talk about that humans grow, but something makes a person, right? Particular moments in life make someone, and we talk like that too, right? So we're not just grown, we're also made, but we're an organism, not an artifact. So there's this really, really, really interesting ways in which making and growing are like, I don't know, not as simple or different as I tend to think, and I think that we sort of commonly talk about them, right? Oh yeah. So there's this little quote that I really liked about finishing, right? Because I know in knitting we have this idea of the finished object, which um, I don't know. I immediately think about loose ends that don't get woven in or that get woven in and come out again. Like it's never really finished. But anyway, so they say in this chapter, it's on page 2, finishing, in short, is but a moment in the life of a pot. They're talking about pottery, clay making as an example here. A rite of passage, perhaps where it crosses a threshold from preparation to employment. And that it's this idea that it's a phase of the life of the material. So the sweater isn't a complete artifact that like is an end point. It's actually it's a phase of life of fibre. Right? So on the back of the sheep is a phase of life of fibre. And then, all the other things that then happen to fibre in the workshop, right? These are other phases of life. And yeah, the sweater is another phase. So yeah, I just thought that's really interesting. And I was thinking about this, like the sheep, right, in collaboration with the farmer, the sun, soil, like, kind of grows wool, but the shearer is the one who makes a fleece, in a sense, right? The cutting off it, now this becomes the fleece, as in the thing we're then going to process or put into more transition. So it's already gone through like a making moment. Shearing is a making moment in a sense. The spinner, I think, is both growing and making and preparing and employing, right? You're washing, this is kind of preparation, and then you've made washed fleece. Then you're carding or combing, or you're not, right? You could spin straight from the locks, but then you're preparing, but then you've made rollags or you've made a combed top or a bat or something. And then you're spinning, which is kind of making, but then you've made a single strand. And then maybe you're going to apply that together to make a double strand or a triple, 3-ply or something. And I was just thinking there's like we're making fibre, but it's also growing. Like the length of the spun fibre grows. Like we'll talk about that as it's growing. And there's just these moments between something that's being made and is made. So like I can show you later, I made a skein of yarn. It's very exciting. But like, here's just a little bit of the leftover single spun. This isn't a skein of yarn yet. It's like single ply on a bobbin. I don't know what this is, right? I guess it's single ply on a bobbin. And then when I ply it together, it becomes 2-ply. But when it's still on the bobbin, it's not a skein yet. And so then when it gets onto the niddy-noddy, right, that's what I prepared earlier, that's empty now. It's still not a skein. I don't know what it is, right? But it's almost a skein. Then you tie your little separating things in and you slip it off. Then you've got a skein of yarn. But before then it kind of wasn't yet. It was in this transitory state. And I just think that's really fascinating about these changes, right? These kind of different phases. I don't really know what to make of it yet. Maybe there isn't any big thing to make of it. There is a reason why it's important to think about material in this way, though, which I'll come to later. I don't know all the answers to that. I've just got one. I'm keen to hear yours as well. But then as I knit the sweater grows, even though I'm also making it. That's really interesting. But it's finally kind of made when I bind it off, sew the ends in, block it. But it's not the end of the life cycle of the fibre. And I think that's what's interesting, right? It's like, it could be that my involvement with that fibre might be done. It might not be. It's unlikely that it's done because it'll either be worn by me or somebody close to me. So the life of that, I will still be entangled with the life of that fibre, right? And of course, with the sweater, right, it will continue to form pills. So bits of the fibre, bits of the matter will ball up. I won't like the look of them. I will take them off. I will probably throw them away. And so in that moment, the material, the fibre, shifts from being garment to being trash. The vegetable matter will continue to fall out, still ongoingly telling a story about what this sheep was eating and rolling around in like years ago. Be sort of probably a bit scratchy and, sorry, excuse me, pricking like my skin. It's the worst story. Friction and gravity will transform the shape of the sweater and the thickness of the sweater. There'll be spots that wear out. They'll need like repairs. So it's not done. It's still kind of going along. It's still a thing. It's still happening. It's still acting and having agency and creating things in the world, right? My skin cells, my sweat, body oils, etc. will become part of the sweater. So this is still like a making process, right? It doesn't stop at the finished object. And the sweater, or whatever garment it is, right, will then get entangled into my relationships. So, I give it to somebody or I'm wearing it in relationship. And I have to say, like, when my partner and I are both wearing sweaters that I've made, it's just like the cutest thing ever. It makes me so happy. Just the best. Just sit there and look at us going, oh. But that's still part of the life cycle of the fibre, right? It's now part of our relationship process. And so there's so many different, and that's just a few, like little examples of the ongoing life cycle of fibre, right? I guess at some point, hopefully it gets composted down into the soil and, the whole cycle kind of starts again in a sense. But I just think it's really cool. And fibre just continues to be a world maker, continues to be entangled in cultural processes. It's not just this, it's not really a finished object in a sense, or finished artifact, as you might call it in anthropology. I always think artifact means old, but it doesn't. It's like, this is an artifact. These are an artifact. Yeah. So yeah, okay, why does it matter to think about wool or anything like this? Or why is it important? I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please put them in the comments, because every video I put out, right, it's not fully thought through. It's just like, here's something that I've bumbled around in my brain and my hands with for a little moment. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why is it important to think about matter and material like this? For me, one of them is that, like Western culture, and not only Western culture, but I could only really speak from that cultural standpoint, I think has a pretty messed up relationship with matter, right? Therefore, the earth, our bodies, is all matter that we really problematic kind of relationship to, and we treat matter, earth, body, etc., quite poorly. And then, what do you know? We've got all these environmental crises, health crises. So noticing how matter participates in our world, understanding that it's not all in our control, that it also has its own tendencies, that it's a collaboration, like we are made of matter. It's not something out there just to be kind of managed or controlled or mostly exploited. I think it helps us be more thoughtful about how we engage with matter. We start to really notice it and notice what is it doing? What is it doing in our lives? What is it doing in society and culture more broadly? Then we might start thinking about, am I happy with that situation? Do I think that is just? Do I think that is sustainable over time? How would this be for, 5 generations past if we kept going like this? And if those things are problematic, what could I do in my life, knowing that each of our lives is kind of a little space, but it's still part of things, it still matters. What might I do differently in my life? If I, now that I kind of have more, now that I'm thinking more about how I engage with matter and how I value it. So that's why I think really thinking deeply about matter matters. And like making a sweater from, whether you've bought the yarn or whether you've made the yarn, it will give most people a very deep somatic appreciation of what it takes to make clothing, for instance, and will make most people take better care of it, which is, fast fashion is a massive issue, right? So I think, taking better care of the clothes we have, it's a great thing to do, right? So, again, we're coming back to this, like we all just have our own little lives in which we can sort of make a contribution or bring a little bit more thoughtfulness into. And so there's one way in which thinking about wool and making things with wool might make us a little more thoughtful and careful with how we think about or how we use and misuse or not misuse matter and things. So anyway, that's what I've been thinking about, is making and growing, and just some early kind of grapplings with that. I've also really been getting a lot out of reflective journaling. I'm not a journaling person, and while I'm very reflective, it's not usually so directed. And so part of my research is to make things, but really reflect on them quite intentionally and consciously, and then take those reflections and look at other data, because the reflections are a form of data, and also into existing literature to then kind of come up with ideas and thoughts about that. So I've been noticing a lot when I have been spinning and making things, actually when I sit and really kind of think about it and really notice what's happening here. These things, that's getting pulled in, and just bringing even more attention to it has been so productive. I was plying last night, plying away, but you don't have to, well, for me, there's times when I don't have to do much with plying. In fact, sometimes I don't have to do anything because I'm using an electric spinning machine and the tension and speed just seems to be just right. So I'm sitting there like writing away in my reflective journal while also playing. And just the way in which being really deliberately reflective about the practice of making actually has made me think things I haven't thought before and have questions that I haven't kind of thought before. So it's really cool. As someone who's I'm not a journaler, and I don't take to it. I've probably tried a few times in my life, and I don't take to it very well. It's been really cool to see how productive and useful it is as a research methodology. And I'm only a few weeks into it, really, so I'm excited about the promise of that over time. Anyway, what have I been making this week? Well, despite still having a bit of inflammation in my thumb joint, I have been doing exciting things, but I'm going to say this is the least exciting. I made a dishcloth. You'll see, for anyone who does know what they're looking at here, you'll see I messed up the stitches down here. I got out of sync. I think is it moss stitch I was trying to do. Anyway, I, being a chronically ambitious learner, I skipped the washcloth stage and went straight to socks. So this is actually it really is my first one, and I love it. And I did just make up the pattern, and it's too loose. I'll go smaller needles next time. It's just some cotton that I got from somewhere crappy, but budget friendly. And yeah, lost the plot in there somewhere, because you've really got to notice, really see stitch pattern or see what your stitches are. And that was what was really cool about this, is that I mostly could look back and really identify, okay, so 2 rows back, that was the purl I started with, so I've got to start with a purl. Anyway, so it was really cool. I see that it didn't quite work all the way, but that was great. And one thing I noticed about this, and I didn't see it coming, and I always love these surprises, is that I'm really, really chuffed to have my knitted things in a new context in my life, like it's in a new life area in the kitchen. And yeah, wiping down the benches with my own dishcloth, it's like so much better than wiping it down with a board one. It's kind of weird. Is it weird? It's probably not weird. Probably everyone who makes their own dishcloths feels like that. I don't know. It's my first one, so I'm still probably in the like, yay, I made a dishcloth. But yeah, I'm going to be making more, and I'm going to be giving them away to some friends and family and stuff, because that's yeah, I really quite enjoyed that. Makes me wonder where else. I mean, I do need to knit a tea cozy, and I would like to knit a trivet or something like this. But anyway, that's one of the things. But, oh, anyone who's been worrying or wondering about the fate of the pyramid cloud cardie, my daughter loves it. It's hers now. And she's like getting around in it, wearing it, wore it to work. She says it's so great. You get extra warmth, but without extra like bulk on your, around your, when you're sort of working and you need clear wrists and stuff. So anyway, I don't have any photos on Instagram yet. That will have to come later. But the super exciting thing I have to show you that I made. Oh my God! Look at this. Oh, is it? I don't know. Oh, there we go. Oh my God. It's so beautiful. It smells so divine, like a sheep, but like a pretty clean sheep. This is 895 meters. It's nearly a kilometer, I think. I mean, they're always estimates, right? But it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm going to say it's like a light DK. It's not fully dry yet, so it's still probably going to, I think, fluff up maybe a little bit more. But look at that. It's like the hanging on that. It's so nice. It's really well balanced. I mean, maybe it's just because it's so heavy. But I'm pretty happy with that. I thought I might have been overplaying it, but no, it's great. And it took me 45 minutes to put that on the nitty noddy. It's the only time I've timed something I've been doing, because I was like, this is going to take forever. And it was good just to go, okay, not forever, but 45 minutes was a fairly long time of nitty noddying. Anyway, I'm in love. It's so beautiful. Every time I look at it, I'm just like, it's so gorgeous. Anyway, so I was hoping to be able to knit a sweater with this, and it's the second part of the spin. I already have two cakes ready to go, and this was about 530 odd meters. So I've got heaps enough to make a sweater, and because I've still actually got some singles and another bobbin with a bit more than this and some other little bits left over, so I've still got to apply all these. I might actually use them. I'm thinking on the go here. I might just hold on to them as singles and then wait and see if I need more yarn for the sweater that I make. I don't think I will. And then if I don't, I'm going to use them for experimental plying. I've never done 3-ply, I've never done 4-ply, so maybe I'll do that. I've never done chain plying. I think they'll all be already plied enough for a chain ply. So I might use them for experiments in plying. But first I'll just make sure I don't need them for the sweater. I have picked a sweater pattern. I spent what felt like 5 hours today scrolling through patterns on my Instagram, my saved patterns, and then on Ravelry searching through there. Yes, I know how to use the filters, but my goodness. I just wanted a really, really plain sweater. Anyway, I'm going to go with Petite Knits No Frills sweater because that's what I want. And I had the realization when I was getting ready for the video that I don't have to wait for this darling to dry to cast on because I've already got some. All I was waiting on was knowing what my meterage was. So even though it's not fully dry yet, and of course you should do it once it's dry, I won't be far off. It'll be, within 10% at least, I reckon. So I think I'm good to go. That's my super exciting news. I'm going to cast on now. It's like a big moment. I gotta say, my first spin to knit a garment. I have spun some things before, but I don't think I've ever knitted with my own spinning yet. I don't think so. Some of it I just don't want to knit with because I don't like it. I haven't got a lot. There's one cake that I have got that I'm going to make some mittens or some fingerless mitts for my daughter with. But anyway, so that's really exciting. I feel very, I don't know, it feels momentous. Anyway, I'm very happy about that. Oh, and yes, thank you for asking. I did make this. This, I have to say, is the most delightful shawl. This is by Jacquie Verbeek, and it's called the Snow Gum Shawl. It's not a huge shawl. I'd say it's a bit mid-size, and it's got cool little different bands of different kinds of knitting. So garter stitch broken up by either a slip stitch thing, and I think this is called Irish lace. And so you got some sections that are just pretty easy and others you've got to pay attention to. And this is knitted in, and I just have to highly recommend this. It's a basic, you've probably seen a few dyers using. It's a merino yak silk blend, so it is not at all scratchy. It's really good on the neck. And Tess from Fluff and Nonsense uses this base and this sort of pale dusty rose colour and this goldy mustard colour are by Tess. They're just gorgeous. I'm not sure if he has those colours anymore, but she has the yarn base and she's dyeing some stunning colours on this yarn base. I saw them at the Australian yarn show a few weekends ago. And the blue kind of variegated thing is by Qing Fibres. Anyway, it's lovely. I highly recommend the pattern. And you'll see on the Ravelry page for it, the Snow Gum Shawl, Jacquie's first original colours. They were so great. I was disappointed as I was making this, thinking, oh, it's not enough contrast. But when I finished it, I absolutely loved it. So I think that shawl could, work with a whole range of different kinds of contrast. Okay, I better stop. That's enough. Thanks for watching. And please, I would love to hear your thoughts about making, growing, whatever, transitions, in the life cycles and life phases of yarn. I think it's so interesting, which is lucky because it's what my whole project's supposed to be about. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. I'll be back next week. Bye.